Nobody told Han Solo what was going to happen to him. There was no briefing, no consent, no preparation. One moment he was standing on a platform in a room full of steam and machinery, and the next, he was gone. Sealed inside a block of carbonite, his last expression locked in permanent agony on the surface. His body technically alive and completely unreachable. He would stay that way for a year. From his perspective, no time would pass at all. From everyone else's, the war would continue. His friends would risk their lives to find him, and his body would be bought, sold, transported across the galaxy, and mounted on a wall as a trophy, all while he was present for none of it. Carbonite freezing is usually treated as a plot device, the thing that happened to Han between films. It is often remembered as a temporary obstacle or a cliffhanger between two chapters of the story. But when you look more closely at how carbonite actually works across canon and legend sources, a much darker reality becomes clear. What happened to Han Solo was not simply a pause in the story, it was one of the cruelest fates in the Star Wars universe. Chapter 1: A machine not meant for humans. Before Han Solo, before Vader, before any of it, carbonite was a gas container. Tabana gas, mined from the atmosphere of gas giants like Bespin, had to be shipped across the galaxy in a stable form. Carbonite was the industrial solution. The carbon freezing chamber at Cloud City was built for that purpose. Heavy machinery, open pits of molten metal, crane systems and steam, a factory floor with no consideration for what it might do to a living person. The infrastructure was never designed with a human being in mind. The technology to freeze living beings had been understood for decades before Vader arrived at Cloud City. Clone Wars-era military operatives had deliberately frozen themselves to bypass lifeform detection systems. They understood the risks and had time to prepare. What Vader did to Han Solo was the same process, applied without warning and without any concern for whether his mind or body would survive it. Vader's purpose was not punishment, it was a test. He needed to know whether a human being could survive carbonite freezing before he used the process on Luke Skywalker. Han Solo was the trial run, not chosen for anything he had done, but chosen because he was available, and because his value to Jabba the Hutt meant there was incentive to keep him alive. His survival mattered to Vader only as a data point. Han Solo was not a prisoner being punished, he was an experiment. Chapter 2: Between Life and Death. There is something the Star Wars galaxy never fully answers, and never stops implying: whether a person inside carbonite is conscious at all. The film doesn't say, and neither do the technicians. The monitoring equipment confirms that Solo is alive, metabolic activity, preserved biological function, hibernation state, but no instrument shown can measure whether anything is happening behind his eyes. The question is deliberately left open. Sources that address it at all describe the technicians' discomfort with the ambiguity. Experienced workers who had run the process on cargo for years and found themselves trouble when the cargo had a face. What we know is what exits the block. When Leia thaws Solo in Jabba's palace, what emerges is a person who cannot stand, cannot see, does not know where he is, and cannot trust his own perception of time. His first words are panicked, his body requires support to stay upright, and his vision takes time to return. These are not rare complications, they are documented, expected outcomes. The galaxy knew carbonite caused this. They used it anyway. The design of Han Solo's frozen form made this visible to everyone. His face on the surface of the block carries an expression of pain, arms raised, mouth open, the face of a man in the worst moment of his life, captured and held indefinitely. Every person who walked into Jabba's throne room for the next year saw his suffering as a wall decoration. The horror is not knowing whether the person inside is aware, and the horror compounds because that question cannot be answered from the outside or communicated from within. Chapter 3: A Person for Sale. Between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Han Solo's body changed hands at least 3 times. Boba Fett transported the block to Jabba's palace. That much is in the films. What happened in between As documented in the wider canon, Fett lost the block, Crimson Dawn intercepted it, and they put it up for public auction. An auction for a living person. The bidders, crime lords, imperial officers, underworld representatives each placed a monetary value on his frozen body. His utility as a political prop, a trophy, a debt, or a leverage point determined his price. Crimson Dawn framed the auction as a demonstration of power, using his frozen form as the medium of that message. His objectification was not a side effect, it was the point. When the block eventually reached Jabba's palace, it was mounted on the wall of his throne room, not stored, but displayed. His frozen expression of agony became decoration, a permanent fixture in a room where deals were made and people were threatened. He was present at every meeting and could not leave. The language around Solo throughout this period is revealing. Characters who handle the block referred to it as it, the block, the cargo. The grammar of personhood quietly disappears, less an act of deliberate cruelty than a reflection of what Carbonite does to how a person is perceived. Once a body is sealed inside an object, it becomes difficult for those handling it to apply the social knowledge of personhood, even when they know someone is inside. Carbonite does not just immobilize a person, it converts them, turns a human being into an object that can be owned, sold, displayed, and disposed of. He became an it because the process made him one. Chapter 4. Removed from time. From Han Solo's perspective, The Empire Strikes Back ends and Return of the Jedi begins in the same instant. He does not experience the year between. He does not experience the battles the rebellion fought, the decisions his friends made without him, the way the war shifted and moved and continued without waiting. From inside the Carbonite, there is no year. There is only the moment before and the moment after, with nothing in between. From everyone else's perspective, a year passed. Leia organized and executed a rescue mission across the galaxy. Luke continued his training and became someone different from the person Han remembered. The war moved forward. People made choices that changed everything, and Han was present for none of them. The people closest to him had to keep living without being able to grieve him, without being able to stop searching, suspended in their own way by his suspension. Carbonite does not pause time. It removes one person from it while the world continues at full speed. The frozen person is held still while everything else moves. This was not new, and it was not accidental. Carbonite had been used for human suspension since the Old Republic era, thousands of years before the original trilogy, and was still in use over a century after Return of the Jedi. The galaxy had millennia to develop something that didn't do this to a person. It chose not to, because the ability to remove someone from time entirely, to place them outside of events while events continued, was too useful to give up. Carbonite does not imprison someone in time, it removes them from it. The galaxy moves on. The person inside does not. Chapter 5. A Living Tomb. Death is an ending. It is final, permanent, and in its own way resolved. The people left behind can grieve. They can mourn, move forward, and eventually carry the memory of someone rather than the weight of their absence. Death has a shape. It can be understood. Carbonite is not that. A person in Carbonite is alive, biologically, technically, measurably alive. Their heart does not stop. Their metabolism does not cease. They are preserved in a state of biological suspension that can last for thousands of years. They are not dead, but they are not living either. They occupy a space between the two that has no language for it, no ritual for it, no way for the people outside to process it. They are also an object, not in metaphor, literally. They have been converted into a block of material that can be handled, transported, auctioned, mounted, and stored. The social grammar of personhood does not apply to them. Their face is on the outside. Their self is not. They are outside of time. The world continues without them. Battles are fought, people change, years accumulate, and when the block is finally opened, the person inside steps out into a present that has moved on without them. into a body that doesn't work, into blindness, into disorientation, into the knowledge that they were present for all of it as an object and absent from all of it as a person. And through all of it, they may be aware, unconfirmed, undisproven, simply unknown. An open question the galaxy's instruments cannot answer, and the person inside cannot communicate. Death takes everything at once. Carbonite takes everything one layer at a time. First agency, then personhood, then time, then the certainty of unconsciousness, and leaves only the body behind, sealed in place, technically alive, waiting for something that may never come. That is why it is worse than death, not because it's more violent, but because it is more thorough. Han Solo woke up blind on the floor of a crime lord's palace, unable to stand, unable to trust what people were telling him about how much time had passed. His body had been sold, displayed, he had been present for all of it, and aware of none of it. He recovered. He was one of the lucky ones. He came out the other side. There are people in Legend sources who didn't, frozen and forgotten, blocks lost in transit, damaged in storage, simply never opened because nobody came back. For them, the suspension never ended. Not death, just the permanent absence of everything else held in place. Being frozen in carbonite was not a death sentence. It was what the galaxy reached for when it wanted something worse. If this one stayed with you, there are two more on the channel that belong in the same conversation. One of them is the ultimate iceberg of the scariest things in Star Wars Legends. 50 entries, ranked, and some of them go to places darker than anything we covered here. The other breaks down the real reasons Palpatine had to start the Clone Wars. It reframes everything you thought you knew about that war. Both are in the description. We'll see you there.